the Rights of the Child on the combined third and fourth periodic report of Jamaica, and we will continue that dialogue tomorrow morning. And the dialogue will be conducted in the way that you will, I think you have been informed, but just to make sure that we are on the same path, you will have a statement or you'll have the floor for a statement to start off with. Then we'll have questions by the rapporteurs and possibly some other members. Then you'll have a short break, just of 15 minutes to get your answers together. And you'll answer as many of those questions as you can during the afternoon. And then at 5:30, we'll have the second round of questions, which will be for you to answer tomorrow morning, together with any remaining questions that might be left over from what we ask you right now. And then at the end there will be some concluding statements by rapporteurs and yourself. Okay. Yeah. So I think without further ado, I'll just pass on the floor to you, Honourable Head of Delegation, the Minister of Youth and Culture, Lisa Hanna.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Good morning. I bring you warm greetings from Jamaica as I welcome the opportunity to speak with the committee over the next 2 days on the rights of the child. My intervention today builds upon a fundamental question that I asked myself when I first became minister. If I were to die today, would I be comfortable with the state raising or caring for my child? I think it is a question that we should all ponder as policymakers. That is, we should see our children not as mere numbers to be reviewed, but as our own children to be treated with love. There is a natural mystic about my country, which is why, despite our size or economic status, we're able to mesmerize the world in so many ways, with reggae music and Bob Marley, the fastest man in the world on land and in water, through the awesome talents of Usain Bolt, Shelley-Ann Fraser-Price in track, and Alia Atkinson in swimming. You see, our children come from a rich culture of excellence, which propels them with ambition no matter their race or class. We have created avenues from the basic through to the secondary schools for them to hone these talents in sport, culture, and academia. However, we still face challenges as they're exposed to domestic abuse, peer pressure, and parental neglect, which thwart the development of many of them from realizing their full potential. We recognize that these problems are universal and not exclusive to Jamaica. While we have not solved all the issues, we have been making consistent and productive strides towards eliminating the impact of these experiences on our children. It is against this background that I make my statement today to tell you that since the tabling of the 2011 report, we have intensified our strides in advancing their rights to access education, protection against violence, and ensuring that those who come in conflict with the law are given equal rights and justice consistent with the provisions of the CRC. In framing our policies, we have not only paid attention to the provisions of this convention, we have also been on the ground, spoken to our children in state care, in schools, in juvenile detention, and heard what they had to say about our approaches, and we have taken their views into account. 25 years after the Convention of the Rights of the Child came into existence, we have 809,600 children, which make up 29.8% of our total population. At birth, our children have more of a 97% chance of surviving beyond age 5, almost a 100% chance at enrolling in school up to the secondary level, and will go on to live on an average of 73 years. Our Child Care and Protection Act, passed in 2004, defines a child as any person under the age of 18 years and serves as one piece of legislation that sets universal standards for the care and treatment of our children. This law acts in tandem with over 10 other pieces of relevant legislation. Importantly, the legislative and policy frameworks are done in response to a number of service provisions of the Convention and its optional protocol, to which we are firmly committed. As a country, we're always in search of ways by which we can strengthen our child rights provisions. As such, we embarked on a comprehensive review of the Child Care and Protection Act and its regulations, which saw a number of issues, some topical, being positioned in a policy paper which outlines recommendations for amendment to the law. We're pleased to inform the committee that a number of the issues that are before you today have been positioned for attention. One such is a matter of corporal punishment in the general population. Corporal punishment in Jamaica is abolished in all children's homes and places of safety and all early childhood institutions and prohibited in correctional facilities. The review and revision exercise that we did was far-reaching and collaborative, pulling together individuals from both government and non-government organizations. We are now collating the data to present to our cabinet. Our government also approved legislative changes for the removal of the quote-unquote uncontrollable behavior label ascribed to children who display extreme behavioral or mental health problems. These legal amendments will remove the option for resident magistrates to sentence such children to juvenile or penal institutions. We will be constructing therapeutic facilities as alternatives for juvenile correctional centers. We are hoping to have the first one ready this year so that these children will get the therapeutic assistance necessary to them. We currently have 4,370 children in our child protection sector, and 203 of which are in custodial care. This represents 5.4 children per 1,000 in child protection and 0.25 per 1,000 in custodial care, respectively. This shows a reduction for over the same period of last year. We recognize that there are still benchmarks that need to be reached, yet confident that we're heading in the right direction in the best interest of our children. Recognizing the importance of the collaborative approach and to further inform and direct our initiatives going forward, we have taken into consideration the impact of violence on their well-being. One such impact results in the unfortunate occurrence of children coming in contact with the police from time to time, either after committing an offence or after being removed from abusive circumstances. In such instances, children in need of care and protection as defined by Jamaican law are immediately placed in the care and protection of the state within the children's homes and places of safety. Every effort is being made to adhere to Jamaican law and international protocols, which require that the children who are perceived in conflict with the law are placed before a magistrate or judge within 48 hours of being in custody of the police. At the same time, the Jamaican government is keen to uphold international good practices for children being processed at police stations to be accommodated in quarters where they do not come in contact with adult detainees. As such, 5 police stations are currently being retrofitted with children-only holding areas. The intention is to eventually provide one facility in each of the country's 14 parishes. We have also strengthened and added resources to our Missing Children's Unit to ensure the speedy and safe recovery of missing children. Preliminary statistics show that during the period of January to December 2014, 1,984 children were reported missing. This reflected a 10% decline in the number of children reported missing over the same period in 2014. Fortunately, we can report that approximately 9 out of every 10 children reported missing in the period have since returned home, due in part to new initiatives being introduced. The Jamaican government has also embarked on policies to interrupt the transmission of violence in communities by getting all players in the society involved in a deeper partnership between community members, churches, schools, social development partners and the police. We have introduced the Unite for Change initiative as a platform which facilitates a coordinated approach to violence prevention across government and including the wider society through an extensive communications campaign to support the changes required. This has resulted in over 30 communities choosing to unite for change. Added to this is our anti-bullying initiative, expanding our Safe Schools program and our national child diversion policy to keep children who commit an offence out of the formal criminal justice system. Recognizing that violence against children impacts on several areas of national life and is cross-cutting in policy implications, our country's activities are contained under the rubric of an emerging national plan of action for an integrated response to children and violence, 2012 to 2017. The plan of action represents a coordinated approach to addressing the key issues pertaining to children as victims, perpetrators, and witnesses of violence in all forms. It is unreservedly one of the most far-reaching policies that cuts across all sectors and is undoubtedly a comprehensive instrument of protection for children. Since 2012, the government also approved the National Parent Support Policy as a part to strengthen parenting practices across the island. The National Parent Support Policy is Jamaica's first attempt at codifying a broad national understanding of parenting issues and at stating its commitments to strengthen and improve support services nationally. Furthermore, there is now a policy that ensures that girls are not denied opportunities of empowerment and self-sufficiency, thus minimizing the risk of possibly falling victim to other vulnerabilities such as trafficking, prostitution, or sexual abuse. Furthermore, we're far along in the building of new infrastructure and renovations to existing ones that will house girls for a transition period who have turned 18 and are exiting the child protection system. The new facility will house 40 girls initially. Outside of the key centred organizations such as the Child Development Agency, there's the Office of the Children's Advocate, the Office of the Children's Registry, and the Children's Court, which are established under the Child Care and Protection Act. And services of our children are buttressed by the provision of other institutions such as the Early Childhood Commission, the Centre for Investigation of Sexual Offences and Child Abuse, the Trafficking in Persons Unit, the Broadcasting Commission, Youth Information Centres, the Victim Support Division, and the National Parenting Support Division. Added to these is an interministerial committee that was convened in 2012 to ensure the effective coordination of the provisions of the CRC so as to align and prioritize decision-making and policy implementation. Children affected by violence may initially present to a healthcare facility, whether private or public, in order to ensure that their physical needs and, in particular, any life-threatening conditions can be addressed. The public healthcare system contains an extensive network of primary care health centres and the accident and emergency departments of the secondary or tertiary care facilities, while emergency intervention may occur. At the latter, data collection instruments, the violence-related injury surveillance system is in place. After attending to their urgent physical needs and once their safety is ensured, they may be referred to the child guidance clinics or other agencies for further management. The Child Guidance Clinic system was established in Jamaica in 1996 and operates as a sector of mental health services, which offers services mainly through the primary health care system. We're proud in Jamaica to have recently passed the Disabilities Act, which will help to advance the program seeking to ensure that equal treatment for persons with disabilities. Proposed changes to the Child Care and Protection Act have also been developed to really mainstream special treatment for children with disabilities. These proposals include providing special regulations, training and support to residential care institutions and foster parents who serve children with disabilities and special health needs, including those affected by HIV/AIDS. Providing training within the child protection, security and justice sectors to recognize, refer and interface with children with disabilities, including ensuring that they are informed of any child protection or criminal justice processes in a form that they can understand. And 3, to improve the physical accessibility of child protection facilities for persons in wheelchairs. Initiatives such as the school feeding program, the reintegration of teenage mothers into the school system, the career advancement program, and the program of advancement through health and education path have helped to keep our children in school. One of the objectives of the government of Jamaica is to ensure that at least 5 years of secondary education for students. The number of secondary school places have been increased and are being increased through the construction of new schools and the expansion of existing ones. In 2011, we had 4 children in the child protection sector who qualified for university entry. Based on our new policies, we're pleased to report that in 2014 we have moved that number from 4 to 45, some of whom have been awarded places in tertiary institutions, including one child who is now in medicine. Jamaica has a rich culture of child participation, one which is promoted from the basic school to the secondary school levels. This is evident through the involvement of Jamaican children in sport, church, national governance, and the musical and performing arts groups at the local, school, parish, national, and international levels. In furtherance of the efforts to reinforce the principled belief that consulting with children and incorporating their views into programs, plans, and policies will create a better society, key-centered organizations such as the Child Development Agency established a Children Advisory Panel, which is now in its third year of existence. The Office of the Children's Registry has engaged child ambassadors across the island who are utilized in bringing greater awareness on child abuse, reporting, and preventative practices. In 2012, the Government of Jamaica also launched the Child Protection Database to facilitate standardization of data indications. I wish to place on record that Jamaica has no children in adult correctional facilities or children being housed with adults in juvenile centers. Jamaica has also been focused, strategic, and deliberate in implementing the convention. We are cognizant of the importance of measuring our performance against the provisions and principles of the articles to ensure a robust and progressive system of child development where the inalienable rights of our children are promoted and protected. This is consistent with Jamaica's deep and abiding commitment to the promotion and protection of human rights of all citizens under our Constitution. With respect to this convention, we are cognizant that we have more to do and we don't have the luxury of a lot of time in which to do it. Our world today appears so much smaller with the advances in technology and the speed in which information is carried that the graphic and gruesome effects on countries experiencing the ravages of wars and unimaginable turmoil become a daily diet for our children. Bob Marley, in his song, "So Much Trouble in the World," suggested a solution in his plea that all you have to do is just give a little one more time, just give a little bit more. Let us continue to give with the best interest of our children in mind. One love. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this inspired and informative opening statement. I'll now give the floor to the first of the rapporteurs, who is Ms. Yasmin Sharif.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon. I take this opportunity to extend a very warm welcome to the delegation of Jamaica. My appreciations to the Honourable Head of Delegation, Madam Minister, for the elaborate and, as the Chair points out, a very inspiring opening. The committee appreciates the information provided. The committee commends the State Party for making efforts to comply with several of the committee's concluding observations, especially the passing of the Child Care and Protection Act, which came into force in 2004. The committee also commends the State Party for introducing several new pieces of legislation for children, which is the Child Pornography Prevention Act of 2009, the Trafficking in Persons Prevention, Suppression and Punishment Act 2007, the Children's Home Regulation 2005, the Victims Charter, the Early Childhood Act of 2005, the Domestic Violence Act, the Sexual Offences Act 2009, and also rectifying the optional protocol to the Convention on Rights of the Child on the sale of children, child prostitution, and child pornography. The committee notes that there are some weaknesses in the Child Protection Act which should be addressed. Several of the committee's concluding observations have yet to be complied with. However, it's interesting to note that changes are taking place in Jamaica in the best interest of children. I look forward to having an open, constructive, and a fruitful dialogue with the state party in the best interest of the children of Jamaica. Now I shall go on to my questions. With regards to legislation, as mentioned earlier, the committee commends the state party for enacting the Child Care Protection Act. However, notes that the Child Care Protection Act does not comprise the entirety of the legislation targeting children. Other legal protections include the child, as I mentioned earlier. The Child Care and Protection Act fails to provide specific provisions for children with special needs, such as children infected by HIV and AIDS or children with disabilities. However, I understand that the Child Care and Protection Act is being reviewed currently. The following are some of my concerns on this act. I would appreciate a response in the following issues. Can the state party ensure that the specific provisions for children with special needs be included in this act while it's being reviewed? There also seems to be a lack of cohesiveness in the legislative framework for care and protection. For example, distinctions between the age of majority, the age of consent, and the age of criminal responsibility result in policy ambiguities. There seems to be also limited protection and fulfillment of the rights of children in conflict with the law. There are insufficient variations in the programs and services for correction and rehabilitation of these children. Undefined policy frameworks for the care and protection of special needs children. Limited legislative framework for family supervision and alternative care. There is lack of detailed regulatory framework for alternative care options, ineffective penalties and enforcement systems. There is no clear penalty for breach of orders under the Act. May we have some discussion on the National Framework of Action for Children? At what stage is this framework? Is the target approval date still before or by March 31st, 2015? Further, the National Development Plan, Vision 2030 Jamaica, what is the current status of this plan? I note with interest that there is a National Compulsory Education Policy and Policy of Special Education. What is the objective of these two policies and when are they being passed or adopted? There is a lot of legislation in Jamaica, but there seems to be a lack of meaningful implementation of this existing legislation in the state party. Is it due to resources? I understand from the replies to the list of issues that a joint select committee of Parliament has been appointed to review various pieces of legislation, including the Child Care and Protection Act. At what stage is this joint select committee? I'm particularly pleased to note that the issue of uncontrollable behavior is being looked at because it was not fair to lump them together with children of other cases. With regards to coordination and national plan of action, the committee notes that the state party has yet to establish an identifiable governmental body for the coordination of all activities relating to the implementation of the Convention on the Rights of the Child as recommended by the committee. Can the committee have a response to this? Maybe there are some plans in the immediate near future. The review of the National Policy on Children 1997 was stated as a priority of the Ministry of Youth and Culture. Can you please indicate whether the review is underway or has yet to be commenced? Independent monitoring. Has the state party any plans to establish a national human rights institution? In the near future, the committee understands that currently there is no national human rights institution, which is in compliance with the Paris Principles. The committee also understands that currently the OCA is charged with the responsibility of ensuring that the rights of the best interests of children in Jamaica are protected. How successful has the body been in protecting the rights and the best interests of the children in Jamaica? Has OCA been assessed, evaluated since it was set up? Now, allocation of resources. What is the current budget or resources allocated for children? About 41.7% of Jamaica's poor are children. This equates to 1 of every 4 children living in poverty. In a context in which children represent 33% of the population, these figures reveal that many people are living in harsh conditions. Now, the severe economic hardship has a direct impact on livelihood and rights of children. I may be wrong, but I believe the budget has been reduced since 2003. Significant budget allocations be made to ensure the implementation of these activities of the Convention. What is the objective of the Social Investment for Children Initiative, which was established in 2004? How does it work? Has it been evaluated since it was set up? Has the current global economic crisis further pushed children into poverty? As we understand that the government is facing increasing challenges in implementing its social policies, has any survey been done in this area? With regards to data collection, the committee recognizes that the state party has a fairly comprehensive database, however notes that there are gaps in its overall data collection apparatus. Data is generally collected cross-sectionally, making its use to target specific interventions difficult. Data is lacking on children with disabilities. Children's rights and the business sector. The committee notes that State Party adopted the Child Care and Protection Act in 2004, which inter alia increased the minimum working age from 12 years to 15 years and prohibits employment of children under the age of 13 in any type of work. Despite the introduction and adoption of the Child Care and Protection Act, child labor is still being used in agriculture, fishing, and the informal sector. This is happening despite programs such as the Tackling Child Labor Through Education project. The Occupational Health and Safety Bill, I believe, has yet to be adopted. The Occupational Health and Safety Bill has yet to be adopted. There is also concern at the limited resources and ability of the Child Labour Unit of the Ministry of Labour and Social Security to effectively enforce the Child Care and Protection Act, and the low level of arrests and prosecutions for child labour offences, and the lack of legislative provisions requiring employers to maintain a register of employees. Now, with regards to definition of a child, according to the Marriage Act, the legal minimum age of consent for marriage is 16 years with parental consent. The committee calls upon the state party to raise the minimum age of marriage to 18, as it is inconsistent with the definition of the age of a child, and further, child marriages are not in the best interest of children. I note that the Committee on the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women and the Committee on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights have also made similar recommendations to the State Party. Best interests of the child. Could you please explain how is the best interest principle taken into account in criminal proceedings concerning their parents, especially in sentencing, including cases involving capital punishment? How is the best interest of children taken into consideration where the parents are in prison or facing capital punishment? How is the best interest of children taken into account in the juvenile justice system? Now, respect for the views of child. The committee understands that views of the child are being promoted in homes, in schools, and government. However, also notes that there is a resistance on the part of some care staff to adopting participatory approaches. The concept of child participation remains relatively new and alien to persons working with children. It is critical that parents, guardians, practitioners, caregivers, and professionals have a clear understanding and value child participation prior to being expected to facilitate it. How does the state party ensure that the above listed persons have a clear understanding and value child participation? With regards to birth registration, the committee notes that Jamaica's birth registration rate exceeds 98%. The Registrar General's Department estimates that more than 200,000 Jamaican children are without birth certificates, approximately one-fifth of Jamaica's children. The committee understands that efforts are being made to register these births. Have you achieved these birth registrations? Have you completed the process? Now, with regards to torture and cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment of punishment, the issue of violence in Jamaican society continues to be a troubling one over the past 5 years. There has been a sharp increase in incidents of violent crimes, in particular murder. Majority of murders were committed on males. The number of females and children being murdered has also been increasing. In 2006, number of children murdered was 65. 2008, it was 94. During the period of November 2008 to October 2009, 110 children, 88 boys, and 22 girls were murdered. The high rate of crime and violence plaguing the Jamaican society has a devastating impact on children. Now, the protection of children from violence, abuse, and exploitation in all its forms is one of the biggest challenges facing the state party. What steps has the state party taken to address the issue of murders? Has there been any arrest convictions? What kind of support is given to victims of violence and their families? In 2012, 40 children were murdered. In the first 4 months of 2013, 16 children were murdered. With regards to abuse, in year 2012, 8,741 cases of child abuse were reported, almost 1,000 cases increasing from 2011. 8,000 reports of child abuse between January to August 2013 were received. The above figures were reported by the Office of the Children's Registry. Every day, 20 children and adolescents are treated in emergency rooms for intentional violence-related injuries between January to October 2010. This includes over 19,000 injuries related to sexual assault, stab wounds, gunshots, and blunt force attacks. Many reports of abuse and neglect affect children in the care of the state and come from within both government and privately run care facilities. These deeply disturbing accounts from within the alternative care institutions over an extended period of time call into question the government's commitment to protecting vulnerable children. With regards to missing children, the issue of missing children has emerged as another leading concern in data from January to September 2009, revealed that 1,206 children were reported missing. Fortunately, out of that, 676 have returned home. Sadly, 3 died. This figure represents 25% increase over the figure for 2008. From 2011 to 2013, a total of 6,410 children were reported missing. 87.4% returned home. There has not been any investigation into the reasons for the increase in the number of children being reported missing. Why do these children go missing? There has been also a significant increase in the reporting of child abuse cases. Maybe this is due to more awareness of child child abuse cases. Can you please enlighten us on the scope of Children's Support Task Force? What are the activities of the task force and how does it support children? Has the activities of this task force been evaluated? I will pass on to my other co-rapporteur.
Through you, Madam Chair, is it that do I answer your questions first? Do I answer her questions first? Or will you break so that I can at least take the first set of questions so that the other rapporteur can have an opportunity to ask? Because this is a number of different things cross-cutting, and I'm not sure if the other rapporteur has very similar questions.
Excuse me, I would like to clarify this, because the way we do it is that the rapporteurs divide the issues between themselves, and this rapporteur has had the general measures and the definition of the child and violence against children. She also touched upon birth registration. In the first round of questions, I'm not sure what is left for the other rapporteur, but even if they might not be clustered by the rapporteurs, it's up to you to cluster them according to normally the way we do it in our concluding observations, to start with general measures of implementation and then go on to the principles, the general principles and so on. So we would like now to hear the second round of questions before we give you this break where you can get your things together.
Sure. Will it be possible for us to have more of a discussion in answering
Yes.
the questions and having more conversational rather than if I need something clarified with you?
We are very happy to do that.
Okay.
We normally do that. If you would like something more clarified during the discussion, or if the rapporteurs or other members would like something clarified, we have a habit here of asking follow-up questions to the delegations. And of course you are free to ask for more specified or repeated questions if there's something you didn't quite catch.
Thank you.
Yeah. Then I give the floor to the other rapporteur, Ms. Aldozeri.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And as you have rightly stated, that there is not much left in this session of. I just have a couple of questions, but before starting with my questions, I would like also to extend a very warm welcome to you, Head of Delegation and delegation members. I'd like to welcome you here to cold Geneva, and cold is literally cold. I would like also to thank you for the replies to the list of issues that you have sent us, and definitely for the extra information that you have provided in your address earlier. It has definitely been very fruitful, very helpful, and it will set the grounds for our dialogue this afternoon, which I'm positive will be very fruitful and will contribute to the well-being of all children in Jamaica. The remaining questions I will raise is on the dissemination of the convention and the rights of the child in general in Jamaica. We, of course, definitely recognize the efforts made by the state party to disseminate the convention and its provision. We are also happy to see that 3 government bodies are in charge of this dissemination of the convention. But can I ask you here to confirm that this is done systematically? And systematically is the key word here. It's done systematically and to different segments of the society, as well as to professionals, including law enforcement personnel, judges, social workers, and others. On the general principle, my colleague Yasmin has covered all areas, but I would like to ask a couple of questions here. Though we recognize that child protection from violence is on the top of the list in your government's agenda, as obvious from the statement, your address, Your Excellency. In 2014, you have adopted the Criminal Justice Act, which makes special provisions for the recruitment of a child to a criminal organization. And you have specified that it is to 25 years. If it is within 300 meters of a school, then it is raised to 35 years. Yet, crime rates are still high, both as victims and as perpetrators. In 2010, 26% of the perpetrators of serious crimes were in the age group between 15 to 19. This violence, again, as you have clearly stated in your opening address, and the fear and the insecurity, it inevitably leads to negative impact on the children from enjoying their rights, namely their right to life, survival, and development. I don't have one specific question here to ask you, but would like you to tell the committee your efforts to combat violence and make Jamaica a safer place for children to live in, especially the implementation plan of the Act and the implementation of the National Plan of Action for an integrated response to children and violence. And are you coordinating with the family and the school in this regard? On corporal punishment, you again have addressed this problem in your statement. There isn't really much to ask about, but in the same National Plan of Action for Integrated Response to Children and Violence, you have stated 4 main objectives. Aim B reads as follows. By 2018, you aim to reduce the number of reported cases of violence against children in targeted communities. My question here, does this objective include cases of corporal punishment? Does your law explicitly prohibit corporal punishment for all children in all settings? You have mentioned the daycare, the children homes in your statement. We understood from reports that corporal punishment is still lawful in school and in home. What measures have been adopted to raise awareness on the damaging consequences of corporal punishment of children? And how effective is the Safe School program that you have mentioned in this regard? I guess abuses and neglect has been covered by Yasmin. I don't think I can add anything in this regard. And child labor was also mentioned, but on child labor, you have put together a national plan of action on child labor in 2009. In your report, you have identified 4 areas of focus: child domestic worker, workers in hazardous situations, which is agriculture and fishing, children in prostitution, and children in forced labor situation, including street children, or as we call them, children in street situation. My question, how has this plan helped in reducing the number or in the elimination of child labor, especially worst form of labor? Has the exploitation of children in labor been criminalized? Do you have statistics on reported cases and legal action taken against perpetrators? Thank you very much. These are my questions for the first round. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think the questions from both rapporteurs on child labour, you can take that in the second round, because it's more under special protection measures, though we have children and business sector in the first round. But I think since you have so many questions already in the first round, but I wonder, are there any other members that would like to raise their hands and ask questions? We seem to have been pretty comprehensive. I would like to add, I don't think anything in particular was said about discrimination. It was mentioned that your law, this general law on child protection, did not cover children with HIV/AIDS, I think, and children with disabilities, and this also relates to the issue of discrimination, because these two groups seem to be discriminated against in your society. So I wonder what you are doing in the way of ending that kind of discrimination, awareness raising, etc., in that respect. But it seems, but I would like to hear your views on that there is not much of gender discrimination in your country, or is that...
There isn't.
Yeah. So I think we can break now for 15 minutes until 5 minutes past 4, so that you can get your acts together. So we'll come back for your answers.
Sure, no more questions?
Not in this round, but you never know what will come.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.